I caught my wife with another man on my own desk, but instead of confronting them, I vanished with my kids and every dollar we had. She thought she was smart, planning her escape while I worked 16-hour days. What she didn't know was that I've been planning too. My name is Dalton Crenshaw. I'm 45 years old, and until 6 months ago, I thought I had it all figured out. My wife Vera, my business partner Marvin Brewster, and I had built Crenshaw and Brewster Smokehouse from a weekend hobby into the biggest meat processing operation in 3 counties. We supplied restaurant from here in Nashville, shipped our specialty sausages as far as Atlanta. Garrett, my 17-year-old son, was already talking about joining the business after high school. Lila, my 14-year-old daughter, helped us design our new packaging. It was the American dream, wrapped in butcher paper and tied with string. The first red flag should have been the cologne. Vera never wore perfume to the plant, said the smell of hickory smoke would overpower anything anyway. But that Tuesday morning in March, she reeked of something expensive and foreign. When I asked about it, Vera said she was trying new body wash. Smells fancy, I told her, loading the last case of summer sausage into the delivery truck. It was on sale at the department store, Vera replied, not meeting my eyes. I should have pressed harder. Should have asked why she was suddenly shopping at department stores when she'd been buying toiletries at the same drugstore for 15 years. Instead, I kissed her cheek and headed out for deliveries. The second red flag was her phone. Vera had always been terrible with technology, constantly asking me to help her send text messages or update apps. Suddenly, she was glued to the thing, fingers flying across the screen like she'd discovered the secret to digital communication overnight. "Who are you texting?" I asked one evening, watching her from across the dinner table. "Just coordinating with the church committee," Vera said, sliding the phone face down on the table. You know how complicated the Easter potluck planning gets. But it was July. The third red flag, the one that should have knocked me flat, was the way she started picking fights. Little things that never bothered her before suddenly became major issues. I left my work boots by the back door, and she acted like I tracked mud through the White House. I worked late to finish a special order for a wedding reception, and she accused me of caring more about smoked turkey than my own family. "You're never here anymore," Vera complained one night after I'd spent 12 hours preparing a custom order of applewood smoked ham for a fancy restaurant in Memphis. "I'm building something for us," I replied, exhaustion making my voice rough. "For the kids' college funds, for our retirement. What good is money if we never see you?" Vera shot back. At the time, I thought she was just stressed about Garrett's senior year, worried about college applications and the future. I had no idea she was creating distance on purpose, manufacturing reasons to be angry so she could justify what she was already doing behind my back. If I could go back and change one thing, it wouldn't be working fewer hours or paying more attention to her phone habits. It would be trusting my gut that Tuesday morning when she smelled like another man's cologne and looked me straight in the eye while lying about body wash. Because 3 weeks later, I would catch her red-handed, and everything I'd built would turn to ash in my mouth. The truth hit me like a sledgehammer to the gut on a Thursday afternoon in late July. I'd driven back to the plant to grab some paperwork I'd forgotten, planning to surprise Vera with an early dinner at that steakhouse she loved. The parking lot was nearly empty, just Marvin's truck and one car I didn't recognize. A silver sedan with Tennessee plates. I walked through the front office, calling out for Marvin, but got no answer. The main production floor was quiet, the smokers cold for the afternoon cleaning cycle. That's when I heard voices coming from the back office, Vera's voice, mixed with a man's laughter I didn't recognize. The office door was slightly open. What I saw through that gap changed everything. Vera was sitting on the edge of my desk, her legs wrapped around some guy in an expensive suit. They were kissing like teenagers, his hands tangled in her hair, her fingers working at his tie. The same tie that was probably the source of that cologne I'd been smelling for months. I stood there for maybe 10 seconds, my brain refusing to process what my eyes were seeing. This was my wife of 22 years. This was my business, my office, my desk where I'd sign contracts and plan our future. And this stranger was treating it all like his personal playground. The man pulled back from Vera, saying something about having to get back to his hotel before his wife called. His wife. This piece of garbage was married too. "When can I see you again?" Vera asked, her voice breathless in a way I hadn't heard in years. "Tomorrow night," the man replied. "Same hotel, room 237. Tell Dalton you're working late on inventory." That's when it hit me. This wasn't their first meeting. This was routine. Planned. Vera had been using our business as a cover for God knows how long. I backed away from the door, my work boots silent on the concrete floor. Made it to my truck without either of them knowing I'd been there. Sat in the driver's seat for 20 minutes, hands shaking, trying to figure out what the hell I was supposed to do next. Call a lawyer? Confront them both. March back in there and throw the suit-wearing snake through the nearest window. Instead, I drove home, sat in my driveway until Vera came back 2 hours later, looking perfectly put together, like she hadn't just been writhing on my desk with another man. "You're home early," Vera said, walking into the kitchen where I was sitting with a cup of coffee that had gone cold an hour ago. "Finished deliveries ahead of schedule," I replied, studying her face for any sign of guilt or shame. Nothing. She looked at me the same way she had that morning, like I was furniture that occasionally needed acknowledgement. "I'll be working late tomorrow," Vera announced, opening the refrigerator. "Marvin wants to reorganize the inventory system." The lie rolled off her tongue so smoothly, I almost admired the skill. "Almost. I'll bring you dinner," I offered. "Don't bother," Vera said quickly. "We'll probably order pizza." "Right. Pizza at the Hampton Inn, room 237. That night, I lay awake staring at the ceiling while Vera slept peacefully beside me, probably dreaming about her suit wearing Romeo. And for the first time in 22 years of marriage, I started planning my exit strategy. I had 72 hours to execute the most important decision of my life. While Vera was planning her next hotel rendezvous, I was planning something she'd never see coming. Friday morning, I called my lawyer, Jim Patterson, a straight-shooting old bull who'd handled our business contracts. "Jim, I need to see you today," I said. "It's about my marriage." "Figured this call would come eventually," Jim replied. "Vera's been asking questions about asset division." My blood ran cold. She'd been planning this longer than I thought. That afternoon, I sat in Jim's office learning about Tennessee divorce law. The business was worth close to $2 million. Since Vera's name was on the papers, she could claim half of everything, unless I acted first. "There's another option," Jim said. "You could dissolve the partnership and restart under a different structure. It's legal if done before divorce papers are filed." "What about the kids?" "That's trickier, unless the children express a clear preference." I drove home with a plan forming. Not just any plan, a nuclear option that would protect my children and punish the woman who turned my life into a lie. That night, I sat down with Garrett and Lila after Vera left for her inventory meeting. "Kids, how would you feel about moving somewhere new? Just the three of us." Garrett looked up from his homework, frowning. "What about Mom? Your mother and I are having problems that aren't fixable." Lila's eyes filled with tears. "Are you getting divorced?" "Probably. But I'm going to take care of you both." "Where would we go?" Garrett asked. "Montana. Uncle Pete has that ranch. He's been asking me to help him expand into specialty meats." The conversation lasted 2 hours. By the end, both kids understood without me mentioning Vera's affair. They chose me. They chose stability over chaos. Saturday morning, while Vera slept off her guilty conscience, I started moving money. Not stealing, reorganizing. Business accounts, emergency funds, college savings. Everything liquid went into accounts she couldn't touch. Sunday, I called Uncle Pete. "I'm ready to take you up on that offer," I told him. "But I'm bringing baggage." "What kind of baggage?" "The kind that comes with a cheating wife and a business that's about to implode." Pete was quiet. "How soon can you get here?" 2 weeks. Maybe sooner." As I hung up, I realized something that should have terrified me, but didn't. I was vanishing after her affair, and I had no intention of ever coming back. Monday morning came like Judgment Day. I woke up at 5, made coffee, and reviewed my checklist. By noon, Vera's world would start collapsing. First stop, the bank. I transferred everything from our joint accounts into a new business account under my name alone. Perfectly legal. I was liquidating assets to pay business debts. Second stop, the smokehouse. Marvin was already there, prepping for deliveries. "We need to talk," I told him. "If this is about Vera, I can explain." Marvin started. "You knew." Marvin's face flushed red. "I suspected. The guy's been coming around for months. Vera said he was a potential investor. Pack your personal stuff. You've got until 5 o'clock. Dalton, you can't just. Check the partnership agreement. Moral turpitude clause, section 12. You enabled infidelity, on company property. I pulled out an envelope. This is your buyout. Fair market value for your share, minus damages. The check was generous, but final. Third stop, the house. I packed 3 suitcases with essentials, loaded my truck with photo albums and documents, and left a note on the kitchen counter. Vera, by the time you read this, the kids and I will be gone. You made your choice. Now live with it. Don't try to find us. Dalton. Fourth stop, the school. I met with the principal, explained we were relocating due to family circumstances, and requested immediate transfer of records. Garrett and Lila were waiting with their bags packed. Are we really doing this? Lila asked. We're really doing this. I confirmed. New life, new start. By 3 o'clock, we were on I-40 West, Tennessee mountains shrinking in my rearview mirror. My phone started ringing around for Vera, probably finding my note. I let it go to voicemail. At a truck stop outside Nashville, I listened to the messages. Dalton, what the hell is going on? Call me back. The bank says you emptied our accounts. This is theft. You can't kidnap my children. I deleted each message, then did something liberating. I powered off the phone and threw in a gas station dumpster. For the first time in months, the silence was peaceful. We drove until midnight, stopping at a motel in Oklahoma. As I carried our bags inside, Garrett looked at me with respect. Dad, he said quietly, I'm glad we left. Me too, son. Me too. Uncle Pete's ranch sat on 3,000 acres of Montana wilderness, 40 miles from the nearest town. It was exactly what we needed. Isolation, peace, and a chance to rebuild without looking over our shoulders. Welcome to your new home, Pete said, embracing me with the kind of bear hug that reminded me why I'd always admire my father's younger brother. At 62, Pete was still built like the Marine he'd been 30 years ago, all muscle and determination. The ranch house was bigger than I'd expected. 5 bedrooms, a wraparound porch, and a kitchen that could feed a small army. Perfect for a man raising 2 teenagers on his own. Dad, this is incredible, Lila said, running from room to room like she was exploring a castle. For the first time in weeks, she looked genuinely happy. Garrett was more reserved, studying the operation with the analytical mind he'd inherited from me. What kind of cattle do you run, Uncle Pete? Angus mostly, but I've been thinking about expanding into specialty processing. Your dad's timing is perfect. I need someone who knows meat like he does. Over dinner, Pete laid out his vision. The ranch was profitable, but limited. With my expertise in smoking and processing, we could create a premium beef operation that would supply high-end restaurants across the Northwest. It's not just about the money, Pete explained. It's about building something that'll last. Something you can pass down to these kids. That night, I sat on the porch with a cup of coffee, watching stars I'd forgotten existed. The silence was different here, not the suffocating quiet of secrets and lies, but the peaceful calm of wide-open spaces and honest work. My phone, a cheap burner I'd bought in Colorado, buzzed with a text from Jim Patterson. Vera's hired a lawyer. She's claiming you kidnapped the kids and stole business assets. I'm handling it, but she's not backing down. I deleted the message without responding. Let her hire 10 lawyers. The kids were here by choice, and I'd moved our money legally. More importantly, we were building something new, something she could never touch. The next morning, I started working with Pete's foreman, learning the cattle operation from the ground up. It was different from running a smokehouse, but the principles were the same: quality, consistency, and attention to detail. Garrett threw himself into ranch work with enthusiasm that surprised me. Within a week, he was helping with feed schedules and learning to operate the heavy machinery. Lila enrolled in the local high school, where her big city education made her an instant academic star. I like it here, she told me one evening after finishing her homework. It feels safe. It is safe, I assured her. No one's going to hurt you here. But even as I said it, I wondered how long that would last. Vera wasn't the type to give up easily. She'd lost her husband, her children, and her comfortable life in one devastating move. Women like her don't just disappear quietly. They regroup, they plan, and they come back swinging. The question wasn't whether she'd find us. It was what she'd do when she did. 3 months into our new life, the first reports started trickling in from Tennessee. Jim Patterson called with updates that painted a picture of systematic destruction. The smokehouse is hemorrhaging money, Jim reported during our weekly call. Vera's trying to run it, but she doesn't understand the first thing about the business. What about Marvin? I asked. He tried to help at first, but she fired him after 2 weeks. Said he was undermining her authority. I almost laughed. Marvin had been running meat processing operations since before Vera learned to drive. Firing him was like throwing away the instruction manual. How bad is it? Bad. She's lost 3 major contracts because she can't maintain quality standards. The Memphis restaurant chain canceled their standing order last week. Something about inconsistent smoking times. That stung. It had taken me 5 years to land that contract, and she destroyed it in 3 months. There's more, Jim continued. She's been calling around town, try to find out where you went. Even hired a private investigator. My blood ran cold. What kind of private investigator? Ex-cop named Bradley Wells. He's been asking questions at truck stops, showing your photo to motel clerks along I-40. Has he found anything? Not yet. But he's persistent. Inexpensive. Vera's burning through money fast to pay him. That night, I sat the kids down and explained the situation. They deserved to know that their mother wasn't giving up quietly. What if she finds us? Lila asked, her voice small. Then we deal with it, I said firmly. But she can't force you to come back. You're old enough to choose where you want to live. I'm not going back, Garrett said flatly. Ever. Neither am I, Lila added. She made her choice when she cheated on you. Their loyalty meant everything to me, but I could see the strain in their eyes. They were tired of running, tired of looking over their shoulders. 2 weeks later, the inevitable happened. I was working in the processing barn when Pete walked in with an expression I'd never seen before. Dalton, we need to talk, he said quietly. What's wrong? There's a woman at the house. Says she's your wife. My stomach dropped. Vera's here. She's not alone. There's a man with her, official-looking guy with a badge. I wiped my hands on my apron and walked toward the house, my mind racing. After 3 months of peace, the chaos had finally caught up with us. Vera was standing on the porch, looking older and thinner than I remembered. Her hair was shorter, her clothes more expensive, probably bought with business money she was burning through. The man beside her was tall and serious, with the kind of mustache that screamed law enforcement. Hello, Dalton, Vera said, her voice steady but her eyes betraying desperation. We need to talk. I don't think we do, I replied, staying at the bottom of the porch steps. This is Detective Morrison from the Hamilton County Sheriff's Office, she continued. He has some questions about your departure from Tennessee. The detective stepped forward. Mr. Crenshaw, I need to ask you about the circumstances surrounding your relocation. There are allegations of kidnapping and asset theft. I looked at Vera, seeing her for what she really was, a woman who'd rather destroy everything than admit she'd been wrong. Detective, I said calmly, I'd like to call my lawyer. The detective's questions were predictable, but I answered them calmly while my lawyer, a sharp Montana attorney named Rebecca Stone, took notes. Detective Morrison seemed more interested in going through the motions than actually building a case. Mr. Crenshaw, did you inform your wife of your intention to relocate with the children? I left her a note explaining our departure. A note isn't legal notification for child custody changes. The children chose to come with me. They're 17 and 14, old enough to express their preferences. Morrison glanced at Vera, who was sitting rigidly in the chair beside him, her hands clenched so tightly her knuckles were white. Mrs. Crenshaw alleges that you manipulated the children against her by revealing details about marital problems. I told them the truth about why their family was breaking apart, which was that their mother was having an affair with a married man. Vera's face flushed red. That's not. It's documented, Rebecca interrupted, sliding a folder across the table. Photos, hotel receipts, witness statements. Mrs. Crenshaw was conducting an extramarital affair on business property. Detective Morrison reviewed the evidence with growing discomfort. This wasn't a simple kidnapping case. He'd been sold. These are serious allegations, he said finally. They're also true, I replied. I have video surveillance from the smokehouse security cameras, if you'd like to see it. Vera stood up abruptly. I don't have to listen to this. Detective, are you arresting him or not? Ma'am, based on what I've seen, the children appear to be safe and well cared for. They've clearly expressed their desire to remain with their father. They're confused. He's poisoned them against me. Mrs. Crenshaw, Morrison said gently, Your husband has documentation of adultery. In Tennessee, that affects custody considerations significantly. I want to see my children, Vera demanded. They don't want to see you, I said simply. They're my children too. Then you should have thought about that before you destroyed their family. The meeting ended with no arrests, no custody orders, just a promise from Morrison to file his report with Tennessee authorities. As they left, Vera turned back to me with eyes full of something I'd never seen before, desperation mixed with rage. This isn't over, Dalton. I know people. I have resources. I'll get my children back. You'll try, I replied. But they're not your children anymore. They're mine, and I'll protect them from you for as long as it takes. After they drove away, Rebecca and I sat on the porch reviewing our options. She's not going to give up, Rebecca warned. Desperate mothers do desperate things. What's our worst-case scenario? She could file in federal court, claim parental kidnapping across state lines. It's a long shot, but if she gets the right judge, we fight it. It'll be expensive, and there's no guarantee we win. I looked through the window at Garrett and Lila doing homework at the kitchen table, safe and settled in their new life. Some things are worth fighting for, I said, no matter what it costs. But deep down, I knew Vera was just getting started. She'd hunted us down once. She'd do it again. 2 weeks after the detective's visit, the real war began. It started with phone calls to the local school, anonymous tips about kidnapped children being hidden on Pete's ranch. The principal called. Lila told me after school. Someone reported that Garrett and I were being held against our will. What did you tell them? The truth. That we chose to be here, that we're happy, that our mother cheated on you. The school backed down after interviewing both kids, but it was just the beginning. Next came visits from Montana Child Protective Services, triggered by complaints from Tennessee about endangered minors. The social worker, a kind woman named Janet Walsh, interviewed each of us separately. Your mother is very concerned about you, she told Garrett during his interview. Our mother is very concerned about losing face, Garrett replied. She doesn't care about us. She cares about her reputation. That's a serious accusation. It's a serious situation. She cheated on our father, destroyed our family, and now she's trying to force us back so she can pretend she's the victim. Janet's report was favorable. Both children were well-adjusted, academically successful, and clearly wanted to remain with their father. But Vera wasn't finished. The next escalation came through the courts. Jim Patterson called with bad news. She's filed for emergency custody in Tennessee, he reported. Claims you're hiding the children in violation of existing custody agreements. What existing agreements? We were never divorced. That's the problem. Technically, you're still married. In Tennessee, that gives her equal custody rights. Even though she committed adultery, it helps our case, but it doesn't automatically terminate her parental rights. The emergency hearing was set for 3 weeks later. If I didn't appear, Vera would get default custody. If I did appear, I'd have to bring the children back to Tennessee. What if they refused to go? I asked. The court could issue a pickup order. Law enforcement would be required to enforce it. That night, I sat down with Garrett and Lila for another difficult conversation. Your mother is forced a custody hearing, I explained. We have to go back to Tennessee. No, Lila said immediately. I'm not going back there. We might not have a choice. The law says. The law is wrong, Garrett interrupted. We're not little kids. We can choose where we want to live. Not according to Tennessee courts. Then we'll fight it, Lila said fiercely. We'll tell the judge exactly what kind of person she is. I admired their courage, but I was worried about their innocence. Courts don't always side with logic or justice. Sometimes they side with whoever has the best lawyer and the most sympathy. There's something else, I said. Going back means leaving the ranch, leaving Uncle Pete, leaving everything we've built here. It doesn't matter, Garrett said. We're not going back to her. Whatever it takes. Whatever it takes, Lila echoed. As I tucked them into bed that night, I realized that Vera had done something I thought was impossible. She'd forced me to choose between my children's happiness and my legal safety. But there was no choice to make. I'd chosen them the day I caught her with another man. Everything since then had just been details. Tomorrow, I'd call Jim Patterson and tell him to prepare for war. Because that's what this had become. A war for my children's future, and I wasn't about to lose. The custody evaluation took 3 months. Court-appointed psychologists interviewed everyone, me, Vera, the kids, even Uncle Pete and Marvin. They visited the ranch, assessed our living situation, and reviewed every document in our case. Dr. Patricia Mills, the lead evaluator, was a no-nonsense woman who'd seen every custody trick in the book. She wasn't impressed by Vera's tears or swayed by her claims of victimhood. "Your children are remarkably well-adjusted," she told me during our final interview. "They've maintained their grades, made new friends, and speak highly of their life in Montana. They're good kids. They just needed stability. What they needed was honesty, something they clearly weren't getting in Tennessee." The final hearing was scheduled for a cold December morning. The courthouse was packed. Vera had brought character witnesses, local businessmen who testified about her standing in the community. Her lawyer painted me as a vindictive husband who'd stolen children out of spite. Mr. Crenshaw destroyed a successful business, abandoned his responsibilities, and manipulated his children against their mother, Palmer argued. "This is parental alienation at its worst." When it was our turn, Sarah Jenkins let the evidence speak for itself. Photos of Vera's affair, documentation of her lies, testimony from the children themselves. "Your Honor," Sarah said, "Mr. Crenshaw didn't alienate his children from their mother. Mrs. Crenshaw did that herself when she chose adultery over family." Garrett and Lila testified in chambers again, their resolve unchanged after months of legal pressure. "She's not the same person anymore," Lila told Judge Harrison. "She's angry all the time, desperate. I don't feel safe around her." "Do you miss your mother?" the judge asked. "I miss the mother I thought she was. But that person never really existed." Judge Harrison took 2 weeks to decide. When we returned for the verdict, Vera looked haggard, like she'd aged years and months. After careful consideration of all evidence and testimony, the judge began, "I'm awarding primary custody to Mr. Dalton Crenshaw." Vera gasped, gripping her lawyer's arm. "Mrs. Crenshaw will have supervised visitation rights, to be exercised in Tennessee, pending completion of family counseling." "Your Honor," Palmer objected, "supervised visitation is extreme. Mrs. Crenshaw's behavior during these proceedings has been concerning. The fake federal marshal incident, the harassment, the inability to accept her children's clearly expressed wishes. Supervision is warranted." As we left the courthouse, Vera made one final attempt. "Please, Dalton, can't we work this out? For the kids." "You had 22 years to work it out," I replied. "You chose another man instead. I made a mistake. You made a choice. Now live with it." 6 months later, we were back on the ranch permanently. The kids had adjusted completely. Garrett was planning to study agriculture in college. Lila had joined the debate team. The custody battle was over, but more importantly, our family was healing. Vera never did complete the counseling required for unsupervised visits. Last I heard, she'd moved to Florida with Richard, leaving Tennessee and her old life behind. Some bridges, once burned, can never be rebuilt. 2 years after leaving Tennessee, I stood on Uncle Pete's porch watching Garrett load hay bales like he'd been doing it his whole life. At 19, he was stronger than me, smarter about ranching, and completely comfortable with the man he'd become. "Dad, the Peterson order is ready for delivery," he called out, wiping sweat from his forehead. "Load it up. I'll drive with you." We'd expanded the operation beyond anything Pete had imagined. Crenshaw Premium Beef now supplied restaurants in 5 states, and we'd just broken ground on a new processing facility. The business model I perfected in Tennessee worked even better in Montana. Lila, now 16, was valedictorian of her class and planning to study veterinary medicine. She'd grown into a confident young woman who spoke her mind and took no nonsense from anyone. "Any regrets?" Pete asked, joining me on the porch with coffee. "About what?" "Leaving everything behind. Starting over." I thought about it. I regret trusting someone who didn't deserve it. I regret not seeing the signs sooner. But leaving? No regrets at all. Even the business you lost. I didn't lose the business. I lost a partner who was dragging it down. What we built here is better than anything I had in Tennessee. The kids had adapted better than I'd hoped. They rarely mentioned their mother anymore, except to express relief that they weren't living her chaos. Vera had become a cautionary tale in their minds, a reminder of what happened when someone chose lies over truth. "You think she'll ever try again?" Pete asked. "She might, but it won't matter. The kids are older now, more independent. They know who they are and what they want. And what about you? You ever think about finding someone new?" "Maybe someday. when the kids are settled in college. But right now, this is enough. And it was. We'd built something solid here. Not just a business, but a life based on honesty and hard work. The ranch had given us space to heal, and Montana had given us room to grow. That evening, as we sat around the dinner table planning the next day's work, I realized something profound. I was happier now than I'd been in years. Not because of what I'd gained, but because of what I'd let go. Vera had done me a favor by cheating. She'd forced me to choose between comfort and integrity, between settling for lies and fighting for truth. The choice had been painful, but it had led us here, to a place where we could build something real. Dad, Lila said, interrupting my thoughts, the guidance counselor wants to know about college visits this spring. Make a list. We'll visit them all, even the expensive ones, especially the expensive ones. You've earned it. As I helped clean up after dinner, Garrett pulled me aside. Thanks for fighting for us, he said simply. Thanks for making it worth fighting for. Later that night, alone on the porch under Montana stars, I thought about the man I'd been 2 years ago, working 16-hour days to build something I thought was permanent, married to a woman I thought I knew. That man had been strong but naive. This man was stronger and wiser. Sometimes the best thing that can happen to you is losing everything you thought you wanted. It forces you to discover what you actually need. And what I needed all along was right here: family, honesty, and the courage to start over when starting over was the only way forward.